Welcome to the Crohn's Corner podcast, where shit sucks and I hate my guts. Brought to you by dagsandco.com, where you can find the latest trendy t-shirts and accessories designed by yours truly, Dom, aka the Crohn's father. I am very excited. This is take 2, by the way. We just started this and I'm an idiot and hit the wrong button. So I'm here to introduce Mr. Kyle Knepp, who is a fellow high school mate of mine who also has Crohn's disease. And we are very excited to compare and contrast each other's stories and personal journeys with Crohn's disease, as it's a new perspective. And thanks for being here, man. We previously said this was our second or third rescheduling, and now our second attempt at recording this. So glad you're here, man. Glad you made it.
Yeah, dude. It's I'm really excited, like you said, to kind of compare notes and see. I think my story is a little different, so be interesting for someone like you said. You hit all the boxes, and for a long time I hit like none of the boxes of symptoms. So, yeah.
Well, let's jump right into it, man. We've all heard my story in the past episode or two. So let's hear yours, man. How old were you when you were diagnosed?
Yeah. It was 14-ish, like right before high school. I remember it was in the summer, because you asked corn. We in our notes you had said, "Can you eat corn?" And the answer is absolutely not.
I miss it, dude. I miss the Sweet Corn Festival.
Because I'm pretty sure that like that time was I'd probably eaten like corn on the cob like all weekend, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like 14. It's the summer, and I have a dentist appointment, doctor appointment, something like that. And
one of the minor ones?
Yeah, one of those ones before it's just like a standard appointment. It's not like you're, like, oh, my gut doctor.
Right.
And we would go to find out we have many more doctor's appointments ahead of us. And I went to the bathroom, and my stomach was like kind of crampy, that feeling. And it's like, oh, it's either going to be like really hard or like really like explosive kind of thing.
There is no in between.
There's no in between. You have Crohn's. It's a constant battle between diarrhea and constipation. But and I just remember like I couldn't really go, but it was like the pain just kept getting worse and worse. And I think you would explain it one time with like needles and fire. And my explanation has always been like Satan's razor blade, because it's fire and stabbing at the same time, just trying to slide through your stomach. And
so I'm not alone. That's okay.
Yeah,
because I always feel like a crazy person trying to explain this to a nurse who wouldn't believe me, or
right.
I was just trying to pick up pain meds. Like, no, this feels like a steak knife on flames in my rectum.
Yeah, and it's like until you have that, people are like, "Oh, that sounds awful." I'm like, you have no idea,
right?
Like it. And so, well, it's one of the worst pains I've ever had, because, I'm on the toilet trying to go and I can't go, and I don't even really get up. I just kind of fall to the ground, get my pants up, and I'm like laying in the middle of the floor, like in pain.
And was this at your house or was this at the office? At the dentist?
I was still at home. We hadn't left yet.
Okay.
And which is funny because my mom was like, this is not my mother at all, but this particular day she was like, "Get up, Kyle, we don't have time for your foolishness." And I'm like, and I'm sure she felt really bad about that afterwards.
Sure.
But I'm like, no, Mom. I'm like, this is excruciating, and like I don't think I've been any trouble in this before, but except for you the first time. But I remember laying there and like I'm praying, and I'm like, I think I'm dying. Like I'm pretty sure I'm dying, and I'm like, God, if I'm dying, make it fast. Do not make me suffer through this. Because to this day, that was, 15, 16 years ago. So half my lifespan, I'll be 30 in March. And
what day?
March 16.
Oh, 21st.
Okay, cool. Nice. So like for half my life, like this is still, I've had all kinds of surgeries. And they're like, well, 1 to 10, 10 being the worst pain. And I'm like, well, Crohn's was the worst pain, so not much compares to that. Right.
Yeah. This is a 4.
Yeah, like when really you're still in excruciating pain for this other stuff. But and so she calls like the health insurance like nurse on call, whatever you can call them, and they tell you whatever. And she was like, the nurse was like, well, it's the wrong side, but it could still be appendectomy, like an appendicitis. Like, you can have sympathy pain on the wrong side. She's like, get him to a hospital. Like, you don't want to chance this.
Sure.
So we get there, and I mean, you've been in the ER. It's like doctor after doctor, just like, oh yeah, sounds like appendicitis. Let's go. Oh yeah, it sounds like appendicitis. Let's go. Yep. So I finally get in, right, and the whole time I'm there, like, it's just like my stomach's like I'm either gonna throw up or like poop the bed, but like neither of that ever happened. It was just this urge to go and urge to throw up, just constant. And so they go in there and they get to the appendix part, and there's like nothing wrong with it. But apparently the rule in modern medicine is if they're near your appendix, they just take it out anyway.
That makes no sense to me.
What do we know? We're just amateur podcasters, right? Like, what do we know about modern medicine? Yeah. So the surgeon comes back and he's like, oh yeah, I took it out anyway.
What? What? There's nothing wrong with it at all. They still took it out.
What?
There was nothing wrong with it.
No, it was fine. Yeah.
But they took. Well, we're here anyways. We're just gonna take it out.
Yeah, we're in the area.
And they actually took it out. So you don't.
Mm-hmm. I have a video of it. I watched them take out, like, they staple. They like, it's kind of cool. They staple at the end and then they just like cut that part, and it's pretty trippy. But yeah, he's like, yeah, we're in a neighborhood, so we're gonna like take this house off the foundation and just throw it away. Yeah. Yeah.
What?
So he's in there telling us this, and he's like, but I did see something that looked a little funny. You know, he's you know, it's not my area of expertise, but it looks a little bit like Crohn's disease. I'm gonna refer you to a specialist. So, I mean, that's when I had my first colonoscopy. And sure enough, Crohn's disease, it was that yellow, wonky-looking intestine stuff you were talking about in one of the episodes. You know, yellow where it's supposed to be pink. So
how long did you stay in the hospital for this? Or was this like outpatient for you?
It was outpatient. I can't remember exactly, but I'm sure I was home like the next day or something. Sure.
And you got the colonoscopy done at Children's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to say it was back at Children's within a good week.
Who was your doctor? Do you remember the name?
Michaels, I want to say.
That actually rings a bell. I mean, I could be making that up. Like, kind of rings a bell.
Indian, kind of, or something. Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah, she was awesome, dude.
I think I might have saw her. I mean, as one of the many that I've seen. But wow.
Dude, I mean, I wish I could stay at Children's, dude. The doctors I had at Children's, the care that they were at Children's was phenomenal.
Like, they actually gave a shit about you?
Right, yeah.
You're not just a ticker or a freaking bottom line for them?
Yeah, let's well, you said it before, follow the money.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Oh my, don't even get me started.
We'll skip that one. We'll skip that question, yeah.
That's a whole episode.
So yeah, I mean, I started medicine right away. I was on Pentasa.
Never heard of it.
Which is like a... yeah, you did 10 minutes ago.
I hate you.
So Pentasa kind of like coats the inside of your intestines, while the other medication can kind of heal your intestines. So I was on like a steroid, and then that's when they first put me on mercaptopurine, the 6-MP. So I was on like, I think I was taking like 15 pills a day. Because the Pentasa was like 6 pills a day, morning, noon, and night, right?
I was on Lialda.
I've never heard of that one.
Interesting.
What's Lialda?
I don't know, but it was like it was a red horse pill, and I think I took 4 of those a day.
It's probably the same class of medicine.
Probably, yeah. Probably that's why I just thought about that, but my body couldn't break that down, and so I would see the Lialda pills. Oh, dude, in the toilet.
Dude, that's so freaky. So I remember one time I took. I'm surprised I can still take medicine after this experience, but the Pentasa was a capsule. Okay. And they gave me a thing where, because I went in, I was like, can I take fewer of these? Well, they took it as like, give me a bigger pill so I get the same amount of medicine, but in few. I'm not like, okay, well, that's not really. So I went from like 6 pills a day to like 3, I think. But it's the same amount of medicine, and the pill is twice as big.
Right.
Well, one of the big pills one time like got turned around somehow, and then as I'm drinking, the wide part got stuck in my throat, and then the bottom part went with the liquid. So the medicine inside went down my throat, and I could feel like it burn as it went down. Dude, it was the trippiest feeling. It was horrible. Like,
did you throw up?
I wanted to. I remember it was It was, I mean, you've had acid reflux.
Oh, yeah.
Like that, you get that bile. That's what it felt like, was that bile, like, was churning, ready to come up. Oh,
Sure.
Dude, I went to the smaller pills. I went back to the smaller pills.
Right, immediately. Like, yeah, you gotta go back to the other thing.
So, yeah, and then, you know, over the years, they wean you off, and, so I was on mercaptopurine for a really, really long time, which if we get to talking about more about medicine, I'd love to talk about that again, because you and I mentioned Humira and all that stuff. But at one point, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, I was doing really well, and I was like, I decided that I was just going to go like natural and not take any medicine. If you're a Crohnie or you have IBS or something, don't do that.
Yeah, I did that too.
Like, did it work for you? Yeah, it did. Listen to your doctor. Like, if you don't want to take certain things, talk to them, and I'm sure they can find some kind of alternative. But I mean, the fact is, there's no cure for this. So, and contrary to what your friend's great aunt's half sister's niece did, you cannot cure this with food. Like, it can get better with your diet. But stick to your medicine as best you can. But yeah, so I went to a point where for a couple of years I didn't take it, and at the time I would have told you I was doing fine. Looking back, I understand why I'm on Humira now.
Sure.
Which kind of leads into one of the other questions about flare-ups. We'll just jump into that.
Yeah.
So I've only had I think flare-up's like a weird word, because when I think of flare-up, I think of that very first time I had that pain, like that massive, like, I'm dying pain. And maybe there's a technical term for flare-up, I don't know, but
that's the only one I know. So
so I've only had probably, in the 15 years I've had this.
And they mention flare-ups on commercials, so you know it's real.
Right, exactly. And then there's always they side-eye the bathroom the entire commercial.
Right.
Right. So, I forget where I was going with that.
Yeah, my bad.
That's okay. Flare-up. So I only had a few of those major ones in my life. Maybe one here and there growing up, and then one in college maybe, and a few. I think I had one about the time they put me on the Humira, which is why I went back to the doctor. And but I remember looking back now, the 3 years or so when I wasn't taking anything. My doctor explains, if you scratch yourself with your fingernail, not a big deal. But if you do that 1,000 times a day, for 3 years, you're going to have a sore there. And he's like, that's basically what your Crohn's is doing right now. And he's like, you're not feeling pain. He's like, but it's smoldering in there. It's, it's like the embers of a fire kind of. And in hindsight, I had this, I had, the urgency to go. I had that where it's like, I'm not going to make it to the bathroom in time. And I was always just like, oh, I ate something. Well, yeah, you ate something. You ate something you weren't supposed to eat. You're not on medicine you're supposed to be on. Right. So, yeah, I mean, what was your experience with flare-ups?
Yeah, so, I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that before.
Right? That's the whole thing. You sent me these questions. I'm like, these are questions I've never even unpacked myself, let alone getting to talk to somebody about it.
Yeah, man. That's tough. This might be the first flare up, I guess you'll say, that I can remember. And I always think back to this moment too, because this is like my whole thing against modern medicine and listening to doctors, because this is shortly after I leave the hospital, or maybe a couple times, and I'm like, okay, gotta eat better, you gotta watch what you eat, you gotta do this and this and that. So, and maybe this isn't the healthiest thing, but for me, if you listen to, the podcast hasn't come out yet, but I eat chicken nuggets and cheese pizza and bacon and waffles, and that's pretty much it. That's not a joke.
That's funny. I think that's what your kid eats all the time.
So. He actually has a better palate than I do. Okay. He actually eats way better and way more things than I do, which is pretty embarrassing, but I'm also proud of that too.
Yeah.
But I remember adding Canadian bacon to my diet, rather than bacon. Is it healthier? Probably. I mean, whatever. But it's basically ham, right? But it was another protein. It was another meat for me. Okay. And we got it at Sam's Club, so I thought it was cool, But I remember cooking, and I liked it. It was good, and I would cook it on like a griddle.
Is this old, like when you're older by yourself?
This is when I was at my dad's house. This I was 17, 18.
Gotcha.
And like I ate like a whole plate of it, and it was good.
Dude, a whole plate of anything is never good.
Well, I learned everything the hard way, and I remember eating it, and I'm like, okay, this is the unhealthy alternative. This is not a chicken nugget. This is not pizza. This is something like normal people eat. And I remember just feeling like I remember feeling like just literally I just felt inflamed. Like I could feel I could, like that's the way I could, like I just felt like my body inflamed. I could feel like I was disoriented in the head. I mean, most of it was like in my chest and like probably it was looking back, it was probably acid reflux and my intestines just like kind of rejecting it sort of. I mean, and was it because it's like a red meat, or was it because it's something new I don't know. But the way I looked at it is, okay, this is me attempting to be healthy. This is me attempting to listen to the doctors. This is my attempt of not eating a chicken nugget or a cheese pizza or a potato chip or a pop. And I remember going right downstairs and going to sleep because I felt awful. And I was like, well, the hell with this, man. I'm going back to McDonald's. I'm going back to Pizza Hut. This sucks. Yeah. And so that was I mean,
I kind of can't blame you, dude.
That right? Like so, and that's what I always tell people. Like when I eat what I want, maybe I notice how to manage it better. Maybe it's because my body's used to it. I don't know. I don't really care. But my point is, when I attempt to eat quote unquote healthy, or when I when I take my pills, when I do everything on time, I end up feeling worse. So then it's like, well, if I'm going to feel like crap anyways,
and you want to enjoy feeling like crap,
then I might as well do what I want, and eat what I want, and feel the way I want to, or that I'm used to feeling, rather than put myself through something I don't want to put myself through, not enjoy it as much, and still feel like crap as the end result. It's like, what's the point? Yeah. And that's like my whole... one of my many things.
I have like so many questions now. Let me piggyback back.
You're my guest, but anyways, keep going.
I mean, those listening, we have like 2 full pages of notes, and that doesn't even include the stuff we'll probably think of later on. Sure. So going back to like my symptoms thing, so I didn't have any of the main symptoms, like lots of bleeding, lots of this, like I think it's been 15 years now, so like 15, 20 years ago, the main thing with Crohn's was like constant diarrhea, right? Constant diarrhea, bleeding, pain was like what they knew. And now they know that it hits your whole body. Like you said, mouth sores. I get mouth sores, not so much now, but for the longest time I got like those little weird white mouth sores. Yeah. Yep. And
which is weird because mine only popped up when I left the hospital, and I would swear to I would swear like.
You think it was the stress?
Probably.
Mine, I get mine when I'm stressed. We'll talk about mental health later, but like the stress for me, that is something that stress will pull up is the little, like mouth ulcers. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Finger sores, whatever they are.
Sure.
But so like looking back, the doctor's like, oh, well, do you have this symptom? No. Do you have this symptom? No. Like all this stuff like you're talking about. Which, by the way, I don't know how you put up with those symptoms for so long. But
dude, I don't know.
But like, then she got into more like secondary symptoms, and it was like, okay, well, do you ever get explaining to like a 14-year-old, like, do you ever get heartburn, basically? And I'm like, oh yeah, I get heartburn all the time. 14 years old, like you don't get heartburn until you're like at least 30, right? And
it's difficult to hear as a teenager. Yeah, these things dude, as like an adult problem.
That is like, and
you don't want to hear that.
I don't want to fault anybody. I think most people are mean well, but when you're like so one of the secondary symptoms is joint pain. Dude, my knees hurt constantly my entire life. Like I would text my mom about some of this stuff to kind of refresh my mind. She was like, you were like 4 years old and complaining about you hurt, and they were just like, oh, he's growing. And they were like, okay, he's growing. Like modern medicine, like we trust our doctors, and like he's growing. And here I am, like, and I never fault my parents for any of this.
Sure,
like, they were doing the best they could. But like looking back, there was all these secondary symptoms, and my parents were always like, oh, we had no idea. I'm like, how would you have known? Like you go to the doctor and you said, hey, my kid's knees hurt. He's growing. Like he's at that age where his body will probably be sore because he's growing. Okay. My kid's picky. Kids are picky to eat. Which brought me to my question for you was, for the longest time, I would not eat healthy food, basically. And do you think that is our, and even to this day, I still kind of consider myself relatively picky. Do you think that is our subconscious, our brain, our gut instinct? Not like our gut, but like our gut instinct. Like, do you think it's some kind of subconscious thing being like, even as like a 4 and 5 year old being like, don't eat that? Like I didn't start eating nuts until I got diagnosed. Then I was like, oh, peanuts are really good. And then of course they're like,
take it out, right?
Yeah, don't eat peanuts. And I'm like, well, maybe the reason I didn't like peanuts for 14 years was because I wasn't supposed to be eating them.
Right.
Maybe the reason I don't like lettuce and broccoli.
Hey, Dad, are you listening to this right now?
Like, maybe the reason I don't like these healthy foods, air quotes, is because they
trigger me,
tear the inside of my stomach apart. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I want to unpack some things there. So, I have two, if you want to call them self-conspiracy theories, if you will. I remember when I was younger, like little, I would get really constipated. Like, this is like when I'm 6,
Dude,
7,
I was
8.
on mineral oil for like till I was 12, probably.
Okay. And I remember just like having the toughest time, whether it was like maybe I was just too shy to go out of school, or I thought it maybe take too long, or which you're that age, you think it's normal, so you think whatever you're feeling is how you're supposed to feel. And I remember,
well, then look at how society is like, and like I don't even know how women deal with this, because women have it way worse than dudes do. About the amount, like, bathroom, like particularly in America. I don't think other cultures, I could be wrong, but I don't think other cultures have it the same way we do. Of like, we're shy about the bathroom.
Sure. Yeah, it's not that
especially
way.
for women.
Yeah,
like 100%. I can't imagine being a woman with Crohn's disease or something.
Dude, I think about that all the time.
You know what I mean?
I think about that all the time.
Especially when you're talking about fissures and stuff, and like it can go into like their vagina and their uterus and stuff. I'm
I'm cringing. Oh,
right?
Man.
Anyway, back to your
no, dude. Like so this has always been.
But
like
you think that's normal,
right? Because that's all you know, and you don't. I mean, you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. You don't know. You're not going to ask your buddy like, "Hey, how was it like for you pooping?"
Right.
Like, that's just not a question you come up with. Like, you want to know what cupcake you're having on Friday at school, or, you know what I mean, or what dress up day it is. But I remember always like holding it because maybe I just didn't want to go. Maybe because I was just playing. I was playing a video game or sports. I just didn't want to go. Maybe it was subconsciously because I knew it would hurt. I don't know. But I almost remember this, like, finally going and then like looking in the toilet and it'd be like not that big, or like not a lot, or sometimes it would be.
Yes.
And then I'd be like, oh my God, that's what was in my system. And I would ask myself that like almost on a weekly basis, like that's all that was in my system. God, Dom, just get it out. But I couldn't. Like, and so that was
yes.
Oh, dude. I thought something was wrong then, but at the time you don't really like think something's wrong. You just know something's like off, but you don't know how to address it. So whatever. My other and to bring that up, like, a lot of kids are finding out they have Crohn's disease much younger than us. Well, I mean, I found out when I was 16. You 14.
Well, at the 15 years ago, finding out when you were our age was very young.
Right.
My mom had a coworker that had Crohn's disease, and oh my gosh, it's come a long way since that lady had it. But like I remember when I was diagnosed, she was like, "Oh, that's really long. You're really lucky they found it." And then like a few years later, they're like, "Oh, we're finding out that kids have Crohn's at like 2 and 3 and 4."
Right. So I actually just took my son to the pediatrician because he actually had strep throat, and I was like, "Hey, while we're here, it's on my mind. I just want to ask, like, and I know this is probably a better question for my GI doctor, but how soon can we test him, or how soon can we, like, because I know it's hereditary, and I think you want to talk about that later about kids and stuff, and it's obviously in the back of my mind because, his mom is relatively healthy, doesn't have, gut problems, and we'll talk about family history in a minute, but, so yeah, that's always on my mind. But the second conspiracy theory that I have of my own is I had a pet turtle that I, like, found. Like, okay, just hear me out. I had a pet turtle.
Dude, you and Emily would get along great because she stole a turtle from Indiana one time. She'll have to correct me on that story, but at one point she also had a turtle that she had found.
And actually, I don't think I found. I think my buddy found it, but he knew. But it was like a big turtle. But it was like in our neighborhood area. He was like, "Hey, Dom, do you want this?" And I was like, Psh, "Yeah." Named it Franklin, obviously.
Nice.
And okay, this is gonna get weird.
Okay,
but
I'm here for it, dude.
I feel like I can talk to you about it. So I would clean his terrarium.
Okay.
Is that how you say that?
Sure.
His cage.
Go with it.
Whatever, dude. It wasn't an aquarium, but I had a fish tank that I used for that.
Okay.
But I don't know if it was his feces combined with just like being a random turtle, but I remember a distinct smell, and it was waste. I mean, it was like it smelled like a toxic waste.
Mm-hmm.
He eventually died because I stopped cleaning his stuff. I was a 10 or 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid. I ended up burying him out in my fish graveyard with Big Chin. Rest in peace. But all that to say, there was a point in time where some of my poops and my waste smelled identical to that.
Oh, wow. The turtle.
The turtle.
So I've never had a turtle, so I don't know if my feces would smell like a turtle. And I've never admitted this to anyone before. But there are times where I'm like if I have like diarrhea or loose stool or something, and I'll be like, I can tell by the smell like if I should be concerned if it was Crohn's or not. Mm-hmm. Like Crohn's stool has a smell that is different than like your regular brand.
Right, which is, it's not funny, but it's if
different. You don't laugh, dude, you go crazy.
No,
so
right.
It's a little bit funny.
So my grandmother, so talking about family history, my grandmother had IBS. Okay. Which, from my understanding, is the same family. But if you ask my doctors in Dayton, it's completely different.
What?
You're right. So this is why I don't see Dayton doctors anymore. Because like they'll ask me like, "Yo, do you have any family history?" I'm like, I'll just let you know my grandma had this. Oh, we don't know.
What?
I'm just letting you know what, like, it's something similar, and my dad's fine, my mom's fine, but my grandma had this. I'm just letting you know. Like, and so they would downplay it. Like, they would downplay it.
What?
Dude, I can't make this up. But, so she had, like, an incontinence problem. I mean, she was freaking 90 plus in a wheelchair. And, I mean, I would take care of her a lot between me and my dad and, and my brother, but she would sit like on a towel, or like in a wheelchair, she would keep a towel there, and I never really understood why. But every now and then I'd get a whiff, and I'm like, oh man, like that's a different kind of.
It's a different, yeah.
And then I smell the same shit, literally and figuratively, and I'm like, bro.
Yeah, dude. So family history. So to my knowledge, nobody in my family has Crohn's or IBS, because I think they're the same family.
It's right. They are. It's a different area of the gut, right?
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Same symptoms, same fight.
But if you look back at so my mom's side of the family grew up in the Hollers of West Virginia, where you didn't go to the doctor unless you were dying or already dead.
Sure.
But there were a couple of family members that had stomach problems, and they used the term weak stomach. They would say like, oh, Jimmy has a weak stomach, meaning, he can't eat certain things. They didn't take him to the doctor for it. He just knew, okay, I don't eat that anymore. So looking back, there's probably something there, but no one knows because no one's the doctor.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So you can have a feeling, or you can guess that it was in there, but you will never know.
Yeah.
So for all you know, you're a pioneer in your family.
Yeah. I'm guessing I'm not, but I could be, I guess.
Right, right. Wow, yeah. So it's weird because people say, oh, it skips a generation, or like my dad always jokes about like the handyman trait, like because he's not handy at all. I mean, and neither am I. But like, oh yeah, it skipped a generation because his dad was probably good at that kind of stuff, fixing a car, but I have no idea what I'm looking at under the hood, right? Neither.
You're like, yep, that's an engine.
Right, yeah. I mean, but my brother, on the other hand, is really good with that kind of stuff. And so he always tells my brother, oh, yeah, skip it a generation. Whereas me and my dad are like, I'm a freaking carbon copy.
Right. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so you mentioned joint pain earlier.
Yeah.
At a young age.
Yes.
And I remember going to the doctor because I had knee pain.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they told me I had Osgood-Schlatter disease, which I think almost everybody has that from.
What is that? What do they say?
So,
that is like?
For you that are just listening, I'm putting my knee up on the table here. So, because I would always joke about, like, I have 4 knees.
Okay.
And if anybody can relate to this, they'll probably laugh because it's different now. I actually had ACL surgery on that knee, and maybe it's not as bad now, but like you can see like this little bump. Yeah. So like that's not normal, right?
That's not normal?
Oh, do you have that?
I mean, I can't pull my pant leg up, but I'll try, but I'm pretty sure, I mean...
Yeah, so, okay, so, I mean, this is basically explained to me, like, oh, it's just from being an inactive kid.
But I was a super active kid, though. Yeah. It sounds like you probably were, too.
100%.
Yeah.
And so, like, and I don't know if you've seen athletes, they'll wear, like, a brace or, like, a band, like a 1-inch brace that goes around that area. Mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't really affect anything. I mean, it's I think, like, your bones, like, are, like, kind of colliding and it just kind of pokes out. I mean, it doesn't affect anything. I mean, it doesn't affect your jumping.
Interesting.
I mean, probably every NBA or every NHL, NFL player probably has it or has gone through it or whatever. I don't think you really get rid of it. It's just, like, a thing. But, other than me just visibly having 4 knees, I would feel stuff and like my ankles crack and all my joints crack and arthritis goes hand in hand with Crohn's disease. So it's just kind of like it's one of those things where like they tell you it's part of it, so I just like accepted it, and now I just don't really pay attention. And then until there's like a day where I'm like, dude, it's raining outside. It's like today. I'm like, and I can feel every. Muscle and joint in my body,
dude. Like the first major cold front we get in the winter. I'm like stiff as like, and like I remember like the first Star Wars movie, like the Jar Jar Binks, so like episode 1, not like the first Star Wars movie, but like the episode 1.
I've never seen Star Wars.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then.
But I'm okay. Anyway,
well, I'll keep saying in case we have a listener that has. There's an old lady. They're in like this desert planet. There's an old lady that says, "Go home, Annie. There's a storm brewing. I can feel it in my bones." And I'm like, I feel that. Like I feel you, old lady, on the movie. Like that is exactly how I feel when winters come. Like when winter is coming.
Yeah.
Like Ned Stark's got nothing on me, you know. So
that's awesome.
So the joint pain and the fatigue, dude. That was another like
just feeling run down, dude, like no matter what you do, or how much sleep you got, or how much coffee you had, or how much you eat. You just
there's definitely a difference between being like fatigued and like I can tell when I don't have enough sleep. Like that's a whole different ballgame.
Sure.
But yes, even like I can get 8 hours of sleep and I can do all the right things. I can, no phone an hour before bed, no coffee after 4. Like, it can do all the right things, and I'm still tired when I get up. It's like I'm still.
What about bloating for you? Because that's a big thing with me. It's like I would always feel full.
I don't know. Again, I never really talked about that. I don't think bloating's ever really been an issue for me.
Okay.
But I know I've also heard like gas is a problem for a lot of people, and I don't think I fart any more than the regular person.
Right.
So
I miss farting, by the way. Yeah.
Well, especially having a little son, dude. Like that's got.
Dude, right? I mean, like especially because he'll fart, and he'll be like, "Oh, Reese fart," and I'm like, "Daddy doesn't do that."
Just be
anymore.
like cover your mouth and like, and
right? I gotta add something there because man. Anyways, who would have thought you would miss farting?
Right. Yeah.
But it's a guilty pleasure in I think everybody's life. They may not admit it.
Oh yeah.
Everyone likes to.
Oh yeah.
Get it out there, but let's talk about more symptoms. Okay. Tell me. I mean, we all know my worst symptoms. So what's the worst complication or symptom that you've endured?
I honestly, I think it's the I think for me it's like the joint pain.
Okay.
Like I never know like how's that like you said like arthritis and it's like you're 30 and you shouldn't even be worried about arthritis.
So is that a daily thing for you?
Or
is it kind of like whenever your body just feels like acting
it's probably
or Or do you just think you notice it more days than others?
I think I just notice it more days than others.
Okay. Do you take Advil, Tylenol, or anything like that?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. So we're not. Did you know we're not supposed to take like
ibuprofen?
Ibuprofen
Yes.
and stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, I take Tylenol or acetaminophen.
I only take Tylenol. Yeah.
Yep. Same.
Yeah.
I mean, I buy the cheap stuff because I'm poor.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't.
Actually, I'm just a single father. Anyways.
I think sometimes you just kind of get used to it.
Yep. Yep.
And you do like I try not to take any more medicine than I have to. So it's the little thing.
Same.
Make sure you have good shoes.
Yep. Dude. Yeah.
Dude, good shoes are the secret to life, man.
Yeah.
I'm on my feet a lot. I think every job I've ever had, I've been on my feet all the time, and I know when my shoes go bad. That's probably something I think is probably when I notice it.
Underrated.
I know when my shoes go bad.
Yep.
And because I will come home and I'm just I don't know if you take baths, dude, but
all the time,
dude.
My friends
so you feel better,
yeah,
because you're
100%.
Yes,
100. Dude,
soap, dude.
I don't care who anybody. I take bubble baths on the regular. I took one on Monday night. 100%.
That's how you feel better,
dude. Mm-hmm. That's why I want a hot tub so bad.
Yes,
and we should look into this because somebody told me that depending on an insurance company may pay for partial payment of a hot tub because if it helps you.
I'm in a condo right now, but maybe when I get a house.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Dude. No. So I'm literally waiting. I'm waiting for some refinancing and financing things to settle down here for the dust to settle. But I fully plan on putting a patio and a hot tub in because again I was spoiled. I grew up with my dad. He had a hot tub that I would get in daily. I didn't have basketball practice, and I would work at a pizza shop standing up 24/7.
So I want to ask you about your sports. You said you tore your ACL. Mm-hmm. I've torn my meniscus and I've effed up my shoulder like twice. Uh-huh. And I'm struggling through some like thumb wrist pain. Mm-hmm. Which talk about arthritis. I'm terrified they're gonna be like, that's arthritis. Good luck with that.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm glad you're here because it's like, what do you do, or what do you do differently, or what do we do the same that triggers things? And of course it's different now because I have the bag and a lot less foods. Do spicy foods trigger anything for you?
That's why I didn't get any more chips because I'm like, those chips are good. But I think that if I were to eat more of them, I would be probably. And so it was a couple weeks ago, but it was kind of like one of those moments where Emily and I were like, we need to start taking care of ourselves because we went and had famous restaurant down in Centerville.
Sounds familiar.
It's kind of like burgers, wings, American food, and I have these really good wings. So I mean, we're talking they're fried and they're spicy, right?
2 no-nos.
Yeah, and then I went home and had. I'm not a big wine guy, but I want to say I had some wine that night because it wasn't too long after the wedding, so we had some left over.
Sure.
And I missed work the next day because of those choices, and I think my Crohn's was. Again, flaring up, I guess we could call it.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm fully convinced that it was my choice of wing and topping. So I'm very careful. I do enjoy spicy food, but I'm very careful eating it because I'm trying to make sure I don't work the next day or or work
so you base your dinner choices off of what you have the next day.
Oh, for sure.
That's normal people don't have to worry about that.
Yeah. And cheese, dude. I don't know if you saw me, but I take Lactaid if I have any milk or anything like that. Which anyone who has lactose problems, give that a shot because I think it works really well.
So I don't know. Sorry to cut you off. Mm-hmm. I want to say it was Dr. Michael's.
Okay.
Back at Children's.
Okay.
I could be making that up because it just sounds familiar, but because I saw Dr. Carvalho, but I also saw multiple doctors then. But there was a different doctor. Maybe he was busy or whatever. It was a female doctor, and they told me I was lactose intolerant.
Just lactose intolerant?
As well as in addition to all the other things. And they also said I had acid reflux as well. So I'm like, bro, I drink milkshakes on the regular, like you're crazy. So I just didn't, it was one of those things where I just, I just dismissed it. Mm-hmm. But I think they. What'd you say? It was lactate or
lactate? Yeah.
So I don't.
Again, though, I'm cheap, so I get like Emily's mom has a Sam Close membership, so she gets me the box of like 7,000.
The members
like
mark.
$12, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if it was so it's over the counter. So I mean they had me do something. Or they had me take something, but I was just like, bro, I'm not doing that. Like I'm not because I hate taking pills. I hate doing it. I hate it all. So I just look for any excuse like, oh, I wait for anything to happen. Oh, I'm done with that. I'm done. But I was gonna go somewhere else with that, but I think I got on a tangent. But we talked about flare-ups. And we talked about symptoms. Do you ever feel 100%?
No.
So okay. No. So on your best
even
day,
on my best day, and I don't know, and maybe I'm at 100%, and it's just a mindset thing. But I don't. I mean, but and the weird thing is like, and I'll go back to like my joint injuries. Like I've had my shoulder operated on twice and my knee operated on. They're both fixed. I both believe they're fixed. This is not one of my conspiracies, but I believe they are fixed. I believe the doctors did a good job, but they're not right. They're not right, and I don't know if anyone else, like if you can say something about your knee or not. Or I mean, I'd be interested to see someone who doesn't have Crohn's and has had other like sports injuries, but they're fixed, but they're not right.
Right.
There's something about it on a damp day. There's something about it on cold days where it's just. And I hope one day I can throw a ball with my kid or kick a soccer ball with him or something. But and it's kind of the same thing with Crohn's. I think that even on if I'm eating right, and again, eating right is relative.
Right.
If I'm eating right, I'm on my medicine, I'm taking care of myself. Something's just not right in my body, and I don't know. If that's, I mean, we can touch on that in mental health, like if it's an anxiety thing or something, but I don't, and I just don't, maybe I don't know what 100% feels like, but yeah, no.
Okay. So, because I mean, same, but give it a ballpark number of when you feel your best. What would you put it?
I'm close. Like, I would say I'm 90, 95 on a good day. Okay. 98. Like,
but you never feel like...
There's something's there. Or something's not there. It's just something's not quite right.
Sure. And even if you take like some some Tylenol.
Yeah.
Does that...
it's just... And maybe it's mental, but...
So I want to take...
I would say even on my best days, I'm at 95, 98%. Okay. But
there's an element missing.
There's something there, yeah.
Okay. So, and like you said, that might be mental. Yeah. So how... and we talked about this on... by the time we all hear this episode, I hope my previous 2 episodes will be heard, but we talked about stress and the mental aspect of any disease. I don't know if you're a Kill Bill fan or a Quentin Tarantino or an Uma Thurman fan, but we talk. I go back to this story because when I was a kid, I think my dad maybe read a story, maybe it was in the paper, maybe whatever. Some lady had cancer and was like, she basically worshipped like this action figure Kill Bill doll and like got rid of her cancer, and like she just sort of just believed in this Kill Bill thing. I still need to watch it, by the way, but and we sort of talked about how just giving Crohn's attention. Would you say, do you know, or could you say, when you give Crohn's more attention, do you think it affects you more versus, hey, maybe I've had a couple beers, I'm not thinking about it right now, or hey, I'm on vacation, I'm not thinking about it right now, or hey, I'm so preoccupied with work, I'm so busy, I'm not thinking about it right now. Do you think it affects you any less, or would you say it's just so prominent that you can't not think about it?
So are you talking about like thinking about symptoms or thinking about like I have a disease kind of thing?
Maybe both.
Okay.
Because it's hard to ignore. I have Crohn's disease. Right?
Yeah. I would say for the most part, if I'm not symptomatic, I'll say if I'm not or if I'm not flaring or whatever. I think usually if I can, hanging out with the wife, playing with my nephews, hanging out with the family, hanging with a buddy, drinking some beers, whatever. you're in the moment, you forget about that stuff. But I do think the fact that you have Crohn's is always there. And even as someone like right now, I'm not in a state where I have to know where the bathroom is.
Okay.
But it's hard not to know where the bathroom is.
Yeah.
It's like, maybe I haven't had we've had those situations where like you have to go to the bathroom right now. It's no longer optional. And, I could go a year and not have one of those moments. But then suddenly you're, in the middle seat of a car or in a plane or something. And then you're like, man, I really hope I don't have one of those moments right now. And so, yeah, there's definitely there's mind games involved in it, for sure.
That's for sure. It's so wild that normal, quote unquote, normal people don't have to think about that.
Yeah.
Or, like I've seen, I think I've seen on like TikTok where, people with stomach, maybe it's stomach talk. I don't know if you have TikTok or not. I haven't really opened it in about a month or two, but there's like a guy, he's like, tell me you have stomach problems without telling me you have stomach problems. And it's like, as soon as you show up to the function, you're looking at where's the bathroom. And like, and I'm like that pretty much. And I think it's subconsciously, it's like I show up somewhere, and even though I don't have to, I guess, quote unquote, go as much, I still need to know where the facilities are to, empty this, or maybe I have to sit on it. But, that came up. Yeah,
I kind of noticed this, like coming over to your house is, so I ran home and changed real quick. And in most cases, Emily will tell you, she'll be like, how many times we're late to something because her husband had to poop, right? And it is not uncommon for me, and I'm typically a punctual guy, like I hate being late, and so for me to be late, like I was probably pooping, right?
And that sucks.
And then they're like, especially when people know you as punctual, and then they're like, oh, you were late, and then you're in a room of like 20 people, and you're like, yeah, I had to
on the toilet.
Poop.
Yeah.
But like it was really nice coming here because I didn't have to be like, oh, let me just go make sure I don't have to go.
Right.
Because I'm like, Dom's going to get it. Like,
I got 4 bathrooms,
If I'm like, oh, I got to go, like, he's going to be like, all right.
Yeah,
like, he's not going to question it at all. And
do your thing.
And I do remember, like, going back to, like, you were talking about being little and having, like, problems and not knowing it. I was in maybe, like, 1st or 2nd grade. And I had one of those times where, like, I felt like I had to go, but I couldn't go. And I think I went to the bathroom, like got up, left class to go to the bathroom like 3 times. And I remember like the 3rd time the teacher was like, again? And I was like...
See, and that's the stigma that gets put on.
Yeah.
So then you
like, I've never felt so... And I don't think... I don't want to fault her. I don't think she meant it.
Sure.
But I've never felt so small in my life as when that teacher was like, you have to go again? And I was like... And I didn't know... And I wanted to be like, why didn't go the first 2 times? Like, I'm still trying to go. You know? And... And I remember one time I was at the bank, I was working at a bank, and I felt so bad. We had a line of people, and I looked at the head teller, I was like, I have to go. And they're like, right now. And I'm like, this is not optional. I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Yep.
And I had to leave when we had a rush of people at lunchtime because I had to go to the bathroom. And it's one of those things where you're like, you're in the bathroom and you're like, it might be better if I just walk out and never come back.
Yeah, right.
Like, if I just leave it, like, I'll leave my backpack there, I'll leave my phone, all that can be replaced, I'm not going back out there.
Yeah.
And, which just adds more time to your bathroom time. You're sitting there contemplating.
Yep.
How did we get on that one?
Dude, I don't know, but I'm glad you said that because, like, when I started my first, like, real big boy job, so I'm like in my first like professional like setting, and granted, so I have like a couple peers, that I'm like teamed up with, or not teamed up with, but we're doing a project together or whatever. And I'm obviously a pretty candid person. I'm pretty open. I'm pretty like, my life is your life now. Like, I'm open. I just and at this long, I'm dealing with this stuff. I just don't care anymore. So it just like it's pretty much a joke. Before I had the bag, it was like a joke. A running joke with pretty much any friends group that I was with, because we could be in mid-sentence, mid-conversation, and I'll get like a look on my face, and like they'll see it before I acknowledge it. Like, oh, you gotta go. They're like, oh, see you in 5 minutes, Dom. I'm like, oh, so I go, and so then it's just like, oh, I come back like, where were we? And so I mean, I'm very gracious of that because like I have. I mean, I guess you would call it a support system, but I had very understanding people and peers that are just get it. I mean, they don't. I mean, as much as they can.
They get as much as they can. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty comforting to like.
Do your friends have any funny names for it? Or anything that's not like? Do they call it anything other than Crohn's? So I got a buddy. He every time I talk to him, he goes, "How's your butthole disease?" And I've heard that. The first time, it was like, I think it was like me, him, and his wife. Maybe it was before I was married, and she was like, "How dare you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's going really good."
Yeah, right. You don't.
I didn't care.
Right.
Like, I mean,
it makes no difference.
He's like, he doesn't know what to call it. He doesn't know all these things. He's just like, "How's your butthole doing? Dude. Are you okay?" Like,
oh my God. I'm so glad you said that. So, Jamil Huffman, Jams, if you're listening to this, dude, it was basketball season, and I was like, I talked about this, our first episode, whatever, and I was in the hospital, so my coach, and I think he brought an assistant coach and maybe 2 players, came out to see me at the hospital. This was this was like in the heat of everything, and I vaguely remember this because I was on a ton of morphine and other drugs and stuff, but Jams came out, and I've known Jamil since like the YMCA and stuff. So we're in high school now and stuff, and like it was like it ended up becoming like a running joke all basketball season, and for the rest of our life, for my rest of my life so far, he'd be like, "Hey Dom, your butt hurt?" Like it would like it'd be like the most like dead silent, and like we'd be like stretching and be like, "Hey Dom, your butt hurt?" And dude, and I'm not gonna lie, like that kind of shit helps because it's like they're making light of it or they're making a joke out of it, and I'm able to laugh at it, so it's like it makes me feel like they're comfortable with me being uncomfortable, sort of, you know what I mean? So I appreciate that your friend that, and I've heard butthole disease. I've probably heard it all, but now it's so common for me now. It's just whatever. Like I don't even acknowledge it, or it is what it is. So I really want to talk about medicines now.
Let's go for it, dude.
So, and we talked about this a little bit before we started. And I you hear on the list you gave me the medicines you've tried. You put 6-MP and Humira. And so when I read that, I was like, oh, you're taking them in tandem for sure. That's what I've always done. I would love, because I can talk about it all day with my experiences with this. But I want to know what so you took 6 when you mentioned earlier. You took 6-MP early on.
Yes, yeah. So here's and you and I could probably go down the rabbit hole with conspiracy theories.
So real quick, my doctors told me that if you take like a biological, such as Humira or Stelara, or I was just on Cimzia, you need to take either 6-MP, which is mecatopurine, or methotrexate. Okay. So I don't know if you had your experience with methotrexate. No. My grandma was on methotrexate, among other things. Okay. But, so I've always been under the impression that you need both.
Dude, okay. I don't even know where, okay, first off, I think we're not experts in this.
Sure. So that's why I forgot to give my disclaimer. I am not an expert.
I'm not an expert either.
On Crohn's disease. I'm just an expert with Crohn's disease.
So with that being said, we can only talk about our experiences.
Sure.
I don't want anyone to take anything that I say here to be like it applies to them. Sure. Talk to your doctor. Talk to multiple doctors. I think you need to see a doctor if you have anything like this. But you also have a right for your body. Let's put it that way. You have a right for your body.
Advocate for yourself.
Yes, advocate for yourself. That's a great way to put it. But I think you need to be seeing a doctor about this, and you see multiple, whatever. But I've never sat anybody down with anybody and talked about this in depth. But it seems like pretty much anyone I talk to with any kind of Crohn's like thing gets a different answer. Mm-hmm. And
because nobody knows.
Well, and here's also the thing. Just because the lady at church, whose great aunt, whose stepdaughter, whose niece cured Crohn's with her diet, that doesn't work. That's one thing I will say. You cannot cure Crohn's,
Right.
and you cannot especially cure it with just by changing your diet. It's important to eat things that don't hurt you, and that helps
To
a
manage
lot.
it, but-
To manage it. So that being said, eat well. So back to the medicine thing. I find it in another conspiracy theory. So Humira, these biologics, in America, we get put on those biologics when the other things aren't working. I'm waiting for the FBI to break through. In almost every other country, they try biologics first. Because, and it sounds like maybe you haven't had great experience with them, but research-wise, the data, biologics work a lot better than some of the other stuff.
Sure.
They work better most of the time for most people. So here in America, with our healthcare system, for whatever reason, we can all pick our own reasons, we do it backwards. And and I remember that was one thing that the Humira nurse was saying, because I was like, I did not want to go on Humira. I cannot stress enough. That was one of those things where I was like, I do not want to do this. 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 And I was finally like, I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I think we were still engaged at the time. I don't think we had been married yet. And I was like, I don't know what to do about this. And if you look at like,
and was this from the commercial you saw, or just because it was a biological?
So my doctor, I went for my colonoscopy in like March or April. He was like, I want to get this done before you get married, and I was like, okay,
whatever.
And I'm really glad I did, but the problem was I woke up out of this thing, and if you've ever been under anesthesia, you know it is not the time to make any life-changing decisions. So I wake up, and I like my doctor, I trust him. But the one thing I wish he wouldn't have done was talk to me about this when I was coming out of anesthesia.
Yeah, that's
because he goes, yeah, that's the face I made. I wake up and he goes, I saw some things that are concerning. He goes, look up these 2 medicines and let me know which one you want to go on. And one was Humira, which is a at-home injection every 2 weeks. The other one was Remicade, which is an infusion once a month, I think, or at least for me it would have been. And I was like, well, I guess I don't really go to the doctor's office to do this. And I was like, I'll just do an at-home injection. I'll take the Humira. So I'm talking to my mom, and my mom was like, have you looked into the Humira? And I'm like, man, it's a Crohn's medicine. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever.
And this,
which is funny because on the commercials they almost advertise it for a arthritis medicine.
Yes.
So it makes you go, why would I take this? I have Crohn's disease.
Right.
So anyway.
So which brings up the question you asked later was, how much research do you do on your own? And I don't want to be one of those weird guys that's like, do your own research, but like, do some of your own research.
Sure.
Like, look up, you know, like, because Humira is for like moderate to severe Crohn's patients, and I was like, I'm not moderate to severe. You know what I mean?
Light.
Right. I was like, I maybe have mild symptoms, and so do some of your own research and bring those questions to a doctor. You know, understand what you're doing. So I'm like, I start reading it. I'm like, I don't really know about this. And he had sent through, like, I'm going on Humira. So I have a specialty pharmacy calling me. I have, what time is it? Oh,
I got a text.
Oh, okay. I was like, what is it? You know, I have the specialty pharmacy calling me. I have insurance calling me. When you start Humira, they give you like a Humira nurse that helps you walk through like the first 6 months. She's calling me.
I have a story. Go ahead.
Okay.
I have a story about this.
So I'm like, whoa. I'm like talking to these people. I'm like, I haven't even decided I'm taking this yet. And I was like really freaking out. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to take this. And like, they talk about how like your incidence of cancer goes up and all this stuff. And I was like, so I start looking up.
Yeah, it's like, go block your Crohn's for a little bit. By the way, you might get cancer.
Right. So I look it up, and this was one of the things that I made my decision on. And I was looking up the rates of cancer for just men in general in the U.S. And 1 in 4 men will get cancer.
On Humira?
In general.
Oh, okay.
In life.
So you got 25% chance.
Yeah. And I was looking at the statistical numbers for Humira, and I was looking at the statistical numbers for just being a male in America in general, and they just don't look that different. You know what I mean? And I'm like, it doesn't, they look the same. And I mean, my dad's a prostate cancer survivor, and it's just like, I'm like, I know Crohn's is gonna F me up, right? I know Crohn's can be serious.
Sure.
And I'm like, I have this like 0.1% of getting cancer. It's gonna go from like 0.25% chance of getting cancer to like 0.3. Right, that was my interpretation.
Sure.
Other people might disagree, but that was how I took it.
Sure.
And I was like,
that's a good way to look at it. I mean, that's a great.
And I was like, I'll do it. Like if I end up not if it doesn't work, I'm not going to do it anymore. If I end up
6MP is a leukemia patient medicine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I always tell people, that's my cancer pill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what. And it's like, so and that's one thing that the Humana nurse told me too. She was like. I was like, I don't understand why I'm on a moderate to severe medicine for Crohn's when I'm not, I don't. And she goes, just because your symptoms aren't severe doesn't mean you're not severe.
Sure.
And it kind of goes back to that smoldering thing where, like, he was in there with a scope. He saw something he didn't like. And that's when she said, she was like, in other countries, they prescribe Humira, like, right out the gate. Mm-hmm. Because it hits hard and it works very well. And... she's like, they don't even really mess with stuff like 6MP sometimes.
That's so wild.
Because they're like, Humira works over, and other countries have figured this out. Other healthcare systems know this stuff works, and they're like, we're just going to do it right now. Mm-hmm. And then if you need something different, we'll change it.
Right.
And I don't know if we can follow the money, maybe we can follow politics, maybe.
Because I would love to know if
mm-hmm.
how much of a kickback these doctors get when they prescribe these household name medicine. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of doctors would be quick to just prescribe something, whether they know it's good for you or not. Mm-hmm. At least that's been my experience. It's like, what? You want to jump right to this, but is there a different way?
Right.
I don't know, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
But.
So anyway, back to the 6MP and the Humira thing. I was explicitly told not to take the two at the same time.
That's the opposite of what I. That's wild.
Like,
I'm still in disbelief.
Like, I kind of wish. If you had said something, I would have brought the paperwork they give you every time you get the freaking medicine.
Yeah. I probably have some in my folder.
But they were explicitly like, "Do not take these two together."
That's wild, dude. That's my bad. That's the complete opposite of what I've heard. And not what I've been told. Mm-hmm. And I've actually had to stop one of the others because I'm not getting it or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think they pretty much want me on 6MP regardless. But so I've actually been on Humira twice now. Okay. So I started taking it when Remicade didn't work. Mm-hmm. So I think I talked about this either with you or on the podcast. Like, it just didn't work. Like, I take that back. It did work. It's a really good drug, but my body was just like, I don't really think so. Yeah. So that's a bitter pill to swallow, pun intended, even though it's a drip medicine, but. So they went to Humira, and dude, I will never. I'm so traumatized with Crohn's, and my dad was here. He can attest to this. I went to the hospital. It might have been like at an appointment where I was like getting my first injections because they were showing me how to do it at home. And I don't know if, in your experience, I had to get 4 shots at once to start it, and then it would go down to like 2, and then it would go down to 1.
Yeah, I did. I did 2 double doses. And then 1 double dose, and then 1.
Yep, okay. Exactly.
So, effectively the same thing.
Yep.
They just had a bigger syringe or something, I guess.
Yeah. So, so did you have the pins that you would just take off the red cap and then the gray cap, and then... Mm-hmm. So, I would not do my own injections. I would have my friends do it, by the way. Like... okay. So, this is my second going... But, so my first time going around... Dude... When I was sitting there on the hospital bed, or in the doctor's bed, or whatever, I think it was at the hospital, but I'm sitting there on the bed with the famous medical paper sheet on thing. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting there, my calves are hanging off, my knees are hanging off the bed. I'm sitting there, and these nurses live like Pulp Fiction style, like. Dude, and like that's not how you do that medicine. Yeah. Like you literally you place it on your skin, get the skin flesh. Get the white part missing and then pop. Mm-hmm. No, they literally they stabbed the F out of my legs, dude. And that's how I was taught to give the injection. And my dad saw that. And he actually messed up one of the. He wasted one of the pens and like shot up in the room. Whatever. They were like, yeah, that was $1,500 that you just wasted. Whatever. But so I'm traumatized by that because that's.
I don't blame you.
I mean that's. I'm not kidding you. I shit you like that. That is they literally like Pulp Fiction style stabbed me in, and then like.
That makes that that situation so much worse because so someone like I used to have a horrible fear of needles and I've gotten better. My wife cannot do needles at all, and this is to me doing this is something we can both easily handle. So there was no need for those nurses to do that because that makes it. And I mean, there's something about having to give yourself at-home injections that is just kind of demoralizing anyway.
Right? Dude, yes.
And then to have like you said, traumatized by the fact that they're Hulk Hogan-ing your legs.
Yes. It was difficult.
Completely unnecessary. Yeah. That's so frustrating, dude.
It was difficult. And, like, it's one thing to say, hey, I need this injection, it's going to help me. And, hey, I can handle a little stab, a little poke. I mean, needles have never bothered me. I have a zillion tattoos. I've been poked a zillion times.
We've given our fair share of blood work.
100%. Exactly. I'm going to bring that up too later.
Sure.
But it's a different thing to, like, inflict pain on yourself. To, like, know, hey, I know it's just a little poke, but I know I'm about to do this to myself. And also, it's for a reason because I'm sick. Like you said, it's demoralizing. So, like... And this is how much I just didn't give a shit about Crohn's or like how much I didn't acknowledge it. I'd have like friends over. We'd be like pre-gaming for like the night or like go play beer pong, and I'd be like, oh shit, I gotta do my shots. So my buddy Pausick, shout out T Peasy, he would do it for
Tyler?
me. Yeah, dude. Pausick.
I don't know if he knows me, but I know him.
Yeah, dude, he would literally do it for me. Like, and like they'd all be sitting, like they'll be in my room, like, and I might have already had a beer or something, or I've already started my double cup Jack and Coke or something, and they're like, should you do this with... I'm like, dude, I don't think this does anything anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Let's just do it. Just say I did it, and I'm done. Of course, then the insurance would mess up the next shipment, and then I just wouldn't get it. So it was really irregular. That was the first go-around, though. Yeah. Second go-around of Humira. Again, I've taken 6MP in tandem at least the whole time. And it's very interesting now because the older I get, and
keep going. I'm gonna look this up. It's right here on their website, dude.
Are you kidding me?
Tell your in the warnings because there's like 14 pages of them. Tell your doctor about the medicine you take. You should not take Humira with blah 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 or Purinthol in parentheses mercaptopurine 6MP.
That's Dude, my doctors and I like my doctors now. But I go to Cincinnati for my doctors.
I had to double check because I was like,
dude, that's crazy. Yeah. No, that's like I really want to. Like, I'm really glad you brought that up and mentioned that because I feel like I have like a stand on now because, and I bet it's the same for Stelara and I bet it's the same for Cimzia, which was the latest medicine I took.
Yeah. The importance of reading the drug facts, folks. Like, they give you that packet at CVS, read through it. Because, so, Emily had, I think, I told you we didn't say it this time around, but Emily had COVID, like, really, really bad. I guess 2 or 3 weeks now. And I'm really thankful for this doctor because he finally saw us when no one else would. And he gave her a couple different things. And I was just... since I was the one of sober mind at the time, she was out of it. I was combing through like, okay, what can I give her and what can I not give her? Because I was already giving her a ton of stuff, and then he wanted to give her more, which it saved her, I believe. And so I was like just going through like, okay, what can she not have? And you look at the warnings on some of these things, like it's super important to A, tell your pharmacist what you're on, and B, read what you're not supposed to be taking with other things, because you just read that paperwork and you can see some stuff. So yeah, that's my little.
That's crazy, dude. That's.
But I wonder, like, when were you on Humira last? I wonder if it's just something newer they found out. I don't know.
Well, maybe, but I was just on Cimzia. Like I just took myself off Cimzia. Well, I take that back. I don't know if Cimzia was working or not. It's so hard to tell because of my previous talk with the insurance and things like that, and the irregularity of it. Is that a word? Did I say that right? But they wanted me to make sure I was taking 6-MP with it, which is the same. And this is weird. I'm pretty sure it's like that. All the home injections, which is Stelara, Humira, and Cimzia. Sounds like Harry Potter spells, but I've always been told with those you either need to take one of those two, methotrexate or methylpurine. Well, on my second bout with Humira, which was 2016 to probably 2017-ish, and I was on that for like a pretty decent like regular time. I was like, granted some doses were later than others, but for the most part that was like the most consistent I was taking my medicines. I think my ex-wife was doing them for me, and because I obviously wasn't doing them myself, but and this is like this is probably a whole nother episode, but I started having panic attacks. And again, you could probably chalk this up to many other factors in my life. But again, I try to find the common denominator in things. And I was like, I feel more intensified after an injection or shortly after an injection. To anybody that has regular panic attacks or has anxiety or has mental issues, I just want to apologize because I thought those were all a joke before it happened to me. Like, I thought panic attacks was a made-up term. Like, I thought it was like a term for a weak-minded person. I thought it was like I don't know how to deal with this, I'm going to have a mental breakdown. But I literally felt like a chemical imbalance. I literally felt... I feel like I'm a pretty stable human being, even as crazy as I am. And like I would like go into like hysteria. Yeah. Like my heart, I'd get bad heart palpitations. I would like my vision would go crazy. Yeah. I'd start crying uncontrollably. And it started happening when I was driving, and it was like the first time I'll never forget. I was on my way to a wedding. Shout out Josh Lish. I still feel horrible because they ordered chicken fingers for me. Specialty, and I didn't show up. And I did have a card for you, by the way. I think I even bought you a toaster that I ended up using in my apartment. But anyways, I couldn't go because I had the CVS to get a card, and I lost it, and that was like a mile down my road, and it was like an hour away from this wedding. And I felt horrible, but and that started happening on a regular basis. So I cut Humira out. Yeah. And panic attack stopped.
Interesting.
So I told my doctors, hey, I started freaking out on a regular basis. I took out the thing that is unnatural, and would you look at that? I'm fine now. Yeah. And then similarly with the 6-MP, I was on that, and I was on that regularly, but I was not on the Cimzia as regularly because of insurance BS. And I started noticing major mood, I wouldn't say changes, but lack of mood stability, and I would become really irritable. And dude, also changed my pee. I started peeing more frequently, and it started becoming a little yellowish or orangish. And this is another thing.
That would trip me out.
None of my doctors mentioned this at all. And I've been on 6-MP now for almost the better part of a decade at this point, or more. And I had to look up on a forum, hey, peeing problems on 6-MP. And there's a whole, they talk about it. It makes you feel like you have to go all the time, whether you have to go or not. You pee, and I don't drink water. I don't drink water. Oh, okay. I hate water. Okay. Water sucks.
Dude, I'm all about water.
I hate water. But I would find myself going to the bathroom all the time. I'm like, dude, I didn't drink this much. Yeah. Anyways, so then I took myself off 6-MP, and my mood has been stabilized. Yeah. I'm I feel dumb again. Yeah. So I told my doctors, hey, I don't know what you want to call it, but I cut this out, and I feel better. Yeah. So explain that one to me. So that's where I'm at with that.
Dang, man.
So that's why how long have you been on Humira now?
Oh, so I got married in May. I think I started July or August. Okay. I've only been on it for a little bit, and then I missed the dose because of COVID, because absolutely do not take anything like that. Do not take a biologic while you're sick. If your doctor didn't tell you that, that's something to note too, because it'll mess you up. It'll make whatever you have worse. So I've only probably taken I mean, I took the first like mega dose, right? And I think I've had 2 refills since then.
Okay.
So it's relatively new for me still.
And you get it shipped with a bunch of ice packs and your.
So here's the really funny thing. They were adamant that they would not ship it anywhere but my house.
Yeah, and you got signed for it usually, unless you requested it.
I sent it to the CVS down the street.
Okay.
They signed for it for me.
What?
And they keep it in the fridge, and I can go get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were adamant. We will not send this anywhere except your house.
Right.
Okay, I understand. I'll make sure someone's home. My wife's home most days. Like, we'll make sure that,
Yeah.
And then, I forget who told me that. And then somebody else called and was like, all right, where's a good place to ship this? And I'm like, I was told it had to go to my house. And they're like, no. They're like, we can send it to certain pharmacies. And I'm like, are you sure? And I was like, this other person told me that absolutely not. And they're like, someone has to sign for it. Like, that's the biggest thing is because like a box of this stuff's like $2,000.
Yeah.
$3,000.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's their main concern is that they don't lose. Like, no one loses basically $2,000 worth of stuff.
Right.
And she's like, oh, there's a CVS. I was like, well, I work on Far Hills Avenue in Centerville, and she's like, oh, there's a CVS right there, and they're open late, which is really cool.
Nice.
So like, even if I work the late shift at work, I can like just swing right over and get it.
Nice.
So it's just so fun. Like, I mean, we've said it 6 times now. The differences between all these places. So
the inconsistencies is what that makes me have a lack of trust in the system, if you will, or the doctors in general, or the pharmacy, because nobody's on the same page ever.
Well, and maybe we can talk about diet later an hour or whatever. But like, I've been looking into specific carbohydrate diet. I think.
Okay.
And
I would love to have you back on with Jordan, who was on my last episode.
Yeah.
And we would have a field day.
Okay.
But anyways.
So I won't go into it much then.
Sure.
But it's really funny because someone had told me about it and I started looking into it, and like, Wikipedia, all these different web pages, like
WebMD, we were dead 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, exactly. They were all like, oh, there's been some promising research that this is really good for Crohn's. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll look into it. And of course, I'm going to talk to my doctor about it. But I was like, oh, this might be something I can do. Like, and I started looking into it, and it's like, you can have any vegetable you want. And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound right to me.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well, let's keep reading. They do say no corn, right? So
I miss corn so bad.
And then it's like, you can have like unprocessed nuts. You're not supposed to have nuts when you're on Crohn's disease.
What?
And then it's like, it eliminates like all bread though. And when they said that, I was like, ugh.
Yeah. I like pizza.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I was like, 2 dudes with Crohn's talking about Crohn's, eating and drinking stuff that's bad for Crohn's.
Last episode, my buddy was like, hey, so how does alcohol, how does beer affect Crohn's? And I was like, oh, it's highly detrimental.
Oh, yeah.
As I crack open it, I'm like, this is very counterintuitive.
Yeah.
By the way, we ordered 2 large pizzas, and we're drinking beer during this. So, not great Crohn's patients for ourselves, but we can manage it ourselves.
Yeah, I think at least where I'm at, like I can cut corners sometimes.
Sure.
I don't drink often. And my wife's aunt, anytime she sees a Facebook post or an Instagram post of me with a beer, she'll like call us and be like, "Is Kyle doing okay after his beer?" And I'm like, I'm fine. I appreciate your concern, but like a couple of beers is not going to like kill me.
Right.
Like, I might have some bowel problems tomorrow potentially. Is it going to be the end of the world? No. Like I will, and then there's the like lactose you can take. You can manage. But anyway. So.
No, that's good. Okay, well, just some closing remarks.
Sure.
I know you got to get going. I probably need to get to bed too, as it's 9 p.m. on a weeknight, and we both have work.
We got to get 8 hours of sleep, right? So we aren't fatigued. Because we're 30, we shouldn't be tired.
I don't sleep at all. I mean, the bag wakes me up at 3 a.m. or 2, in between 2 and 3 every night.
So you know when you feel when it needs to be emptied?
Oh, dude. So if I'm sleeping next to somebody, they would hate when my alarms go off.
Oh, you have an alarm. Okay.
But that's because that's an anxiety thing. Like, but now I found out when I like don't set my alarm, I wake up my body wakes up itself.
Yeah.
And I've noticed
that's your anxiety, probably, dude.
Oh, 100%.
Like, I mean,
well, that and I can actually feel the weight of my bag filling.
Oh, that can
so a combination of both, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's one. I would say it's predominantly more anxiety than that, because I've also drank way too much one night before. I mean, this is many moons ago when I was going through my divorce and stuff. I mean, because there was like 2 nights within a month where my bag like burst overnight. So I had to get like new comforters and new sheets and all that stuff. So because of that, I have like high anxiety going to bed.
Don't blame you, dude.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's not cool. But yeah, so I don't sleep anyways. But so we talked about corn and popcorn. Mm-hmm. You can't eat that. I can't eat that. I would cheat. And we talked about picking your dinner or your diet the night before, or maybe what you have going on that day or the next day. And I remember, and this is a shout out to my friends, we used to go to B-Dubs a lot. Thing. Mm-hmm. And that was, for whatever reason, I mean, they've changed their chicken like 1,000 times since then, but back then, for whatever reason, B-Dubs was something that would absolutely obliterate me. I mean, and I only got the chicken tenders because I don't do sauce. At the time, I didn't do wings. So I would only get the chicken tenders and fries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's weird. You would think, hot sauce.
That's exactly where my head went. Yeah.
Right, but it was literally just like the breaded chicken tenders, and it would that was Armageddon for me. And like, so I would have to like consciously say, "Hey guys, I don't care tonight," or "Hey, I'm good. We can still like." But they would be like, "Oh, Dom, we can't do B-Dubs," and they would get it. But like. It was a thing. Like, it was like, B-Dubs will fuck Dom up. Sorry. So we're not gonna do that. And like, so that was. I mean, that was probably the only thing that was, I guess, normal that I would be like, let's not do that because it'll hurt me. So I thought that was kind of big for me, mature for me. But whatever. So you could say that Crohn's has taken away popcorn from us, or corn from us.
Dude, when same thing with peanuts, I was never really into popcorn until I turned about like 13, 14, when I got Crohn's. And like, so my parents, we've always gone to Dragons games. They've had full season, but they've had part season tickets since the stadium was built. So that was most of our summer, was going to the Dragons games, and eating peanuts and popcorn at a game was like the thing. And I probably didn't get into it until then. And then, of course, I can't eat those things anymore. But I remember there would be times where like, I would like get a couple pieces of popcorn, and I would eat like the puffed part, and like chew around the puffed part, and then like throw away like the kernel piece. The hard piece that is bad for us. Yeah. And eventually I was like, that's not worth it. But or when I was with I used to work for the Boy Scouts, and I was on the road a lot of traveling. I was on the road for like 3 hours a day. And I would since you can't have sunflower seeds, I would literally just go to the gas station, buy a bag of sunflower seeds, and just like suck all the salt off. And then I would shell them, but spit all of it out.
Dude, that's what I did before I liked sunflower seeds.
Just because. I
wonder if I did that subconsciously. Because I ended up growing up to like the sunflower seeds.
Yeah.
During baseball season, but I would just like the salt, and I wouldn't.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's crazy.
Again, I think that's no subconscious thing. But yeah, because you're on the road so much, and I'm like, I need something, so I would just buy sunflower seeds, shell them, and spit the whole thing out.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it was interesting you said, what has Crohn's taken from you in this question?
Yeah, I'm dying to know.
Because I don't know that that's something I've ever, like, really thought about, I guess.
And do you think that's because you just don't acknowledge it because it's an everyday thing?
I think so. And I think it's interesting, too, like, our diagnoses were only a few years apart.
Sure.
But I think in a man's life there's a big difference between like 14 and like 17. And I think I had the advantage of being younger. When we're in our late teens, early 20s, men particularly, we feel kind of invincible.
Sure.
Right? And I
still think that.
But I think when you're younger, I think I might have I missed that a little bit. because I was like, and we've said this term a couple times, and I don't know that I necessarily like it. It's something we can talk about later or something, but like, I've always known like I'm sick, I can't do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never kept me from playing a sport. It's never, I'm married, like, dating was never like terrible. My friends make jokes about it, like, but there is, I think, if it's taken anything, it's probably taken some, and I said this in all my notes too, is I've never really taken my mental health seriously. So that's something I might have to like think about and then come back to you on.
Sure, yeah. Well, I would love to have you on again, like hey, let's check on them now sort of thing, or like, hey, let's check in how are things different now.
I'd love to do that.
Great.
But I think since you sent this to me, I think probably something along the lines of like my mentality of thinking about things. It's taken a little bit of the flightiness of life, I guess.
Sure.
I have to base food around work. I have to base things off of my Humira injections. Which Humira has come a long way. I mean,
which you've grown accustomed to, so you probably don't feel like it's taken anything from you. I don't necessarily
know that I've
because you've just adjusted and you've adapted.
Yeah.
Which is you have to be. So kudos to you, because I mean I think anybody living with an invisible illness is incredible. But
dude, I think invisible illness, like that's a pretty good way to put it, because especially I think it's invisible, like people outside can't see it, but I think it's invisible for us sometimes.
Because unless you're having a flare up,
you don't always notice it.
Exactly.
Or even like getting married, like you're melding two human lives together. Suddenly you're like responsible for each other.
Yeah.
And there's things you like have to consider. And she is amazing. She thinks of me more than I think of me. But there's these things where you're like, oh yeah, I can't do that. And it's invisible for us sometimes because, we get used to knee pain. We get used to running to the bathroom. Like, we get used to those things, and you just live through it. Yeah. So I guess some kind of like the flightiness of life is probably taken away from me.
Okay, that's a good answer though. That's because I think that's hard to answer, because like we said, it's hard. You just adapt and you adjust, but I think if you can acknowledge something and still keep going, I think that's amazing for you. So good on you, man. So I know this is big for you. I know you want to talk about it a little bit. So kind of just jump right into that of knowing all of that, knowing all of the turmoil and trials and tribulations you've gone through, and how it affects your daily life or your weekend life or whatever. What keeps you going, man? What keeps your head on straight? Other than maybe your wife and your love and support system. Yeah.
Dude, I want to touch. I want to come back to that question. Can we talk about support systems real quick?
Yes.
I think we've kind of like glazed over a little bit. But one thing when you asked that question that came to my mind was like, you can have a really good support system and still feel alone. Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. Because, like, I mean, how many times tonight have we been like, oh my gosh, someone gets it? And, like, my wife understands that sometimes I run to the bathroom. Like you said, like your friends could see it on your face. Like, they get we have to run to the bathroom. But until you're, like, running to the bathroom yourself, you don't understand that. And until you meet somebody on that level, like, there can be some loneliness to that, even if you have an awesome support system. Yeah,
because you can have an awesome support system, but you have to live that moment of having to exit the conversation to go to the bathroom. And it may be all fine and well, everybody gets it, they can make a joke about it, but you're still leaving that moment to take care of something you can't
control. It takes away moments.
Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something, but I cut you off and then I cut myself off.
That's all right. Maybe it'll come back to you.
Yeah.
So I think what keeps me going. So I think my biggest thing is my faith, dude. Being I consider myself like a devout Christian.
Okay.
So for me,
have you always been this way?
I've always been a Christian, yeah. Okay. My faith has ebbed and flowed, but I've always been a believer.
Sure.
I've deconstructed at some points in my life, and oddly enough, I think when I deconstructed was kind of when I went with that like no medicine phase. So maybe there's something to that, maybe there's not. I don't know.
Sure.
But I think now for me is like, I believe in an eternity outside of this life. So I believe that there will be a day where I don't have to deal with this crap.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And I think that's what keeps me going is like, assuming I live a regular lifespan of like 76, 80 years, that's still going to be a drop in what I consider eternity. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what like kind of keeps me going is my hope of that.
Okay. So I know I would love to give you another I guess platform to talk about that some more because I know that's big for you. For me, it's not so much. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was raised Catholic. I know the term. I was raised Catholic.
As soon as you said that, I was like, "Oh, I understand."
So you know what that means, right?
I know exactly what.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you mentioned that because going through my situations and my own traumas, and I've had a lot of stuff happen in the last couple years.
Dude, yeah.
I found myself like teetering back to like, oh, maybe I should find my faith again, or like maybe I should take it a little more serious, or maybe I should go back to church, or things like that. So I would love to talk about this another time.
And even if you like, man, like we have each other's numbers now. If you want to talk off podcast, whatever,
sure.
Like I said in the notes, I'm not gonna preach to you. I'm glad to hear you say you're leaning back towards it. Like that fills me with joy.
Sure.
But I mean, I would want you to do that in a way that makes you comfortable. So if you want to talk about it on or off microphone, let me know, man.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
No, but it's so funny that not funny, but you say that what keeps you going is like that there's going to be a day where you don't have to deal with this. And because people ask me all the time, like, Dom, how do you do it? Like, how do you manage? Because I work from home and I take care of my kid and I deal with this chronic illness and I have a bag now and I got this and this and this and this and that and I'm going through this. And I've been talking about this a little more candidly with my friends and stuff. It's like and I'm proud of myself for this because I wake up every day. Granted, I have my kid and I have to put on a happy face and I get that, but I wake up every day with like a genuine happiness and a genuine lust for life that like, hey, I'm going through shit right now. I'm going through hell and I can still smile. So I know that there's going to be a time where I'm not like this.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine. Maybe I'm just imagining how amazing and how beautiful that will be when I'm not dealing with this in a physical presence.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm not acknowledging that in a faith way, so to speak, because I'm not into that right now. But I feel like we're on the same wavelength of that matter, and maybe I'm just subconsciously thinking the same way you are. So I think it'd be great to like dive into that and test those waters and things like that. But I just wanted to say that and how I can relate, and even though it's a different way.
Yeah.
But
yeah, cool. I think if you are a religious person, like don't. I'm kind of speaking more to like the people listening.
Sure.
Don't give that up.
Okay.
Like just because you have an earthly problem, and like there is hope out there, and maybe that means going to church. Maybe that means finding a therapist. Maybe that means finding a buddy to talk to. Like there's hope out there. Like just find it. Like M's really in the Harry Potter, and so we're going through the movies right now, and there's a part where Dumbledore says, I'm gonna butcher this. Sorry, Emily, and all the other Harry Potter fans out there. But Dumbledore says something to the effect of like, the help is there if you just ask for it, and like ask for it. Like you're not alone in this. Like that would be my parting word. I think at least for now is there's hope out there. Just find someone to talk about it with. So
sure. Yeah. Well, man, that's gonna do it for episode. I don't know if this will be now after I break up the other episodes, and maybe
6, 7, something like that. Yeah.
But man, I can't thank you enough for coming on and spending your night with me.
I want to thank you, man. Like when you when I messaged you, I was hanging out with Joel from high school.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You remember Dom?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, did you know he had Crohn's?" And I was like, I vaguely remember.
I vaguely remember in high school it got brought up somehow.
Yes, I
knew it.
I vaguely remember Dom having it in high school. I was like, I don't know any of his story or anything.
Yeah.
And you had like just posted the picture of the bag, and he's like, "Well, he has a bag," and I'm like, "Oh man, that sucks." And I was like, which I'm really glad to learn now. It's not a colostomy bag; it's the ileostomy.
Yeah.
I'm really glad to hear that. I was really filled with joy when I heard that. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But he was like, yeah, he's like starting a podcast. I'm like, oh, dude. So like, I was just wanted to be like, I'm so glad you're doing this, Dom. And then you're like, you want to talk about your Crohn's? I'm like, yes, I would love to talk about my Crohn's.
Dude, yeah.
So I'm thankful for you giving me this opportunity because.
I'm glad you took it. I was kind of scared to ask, because not everybody wants to talk about such a shitty topic, pun intended, So thank you for being so candid and open and telling your story.
Yeah, dude.
That's brave, man. Thank you for doing that. To our listeners, I hope you guys appreciate someone that can share their story, even though it's not as graphic as maybe yours or mine, but everyone has a story and everyone is going through something that you don't know. So Kyle, thank you for being here. I hope to have you on again.
Yeah, just let me know, man.
Maybe with a scientist on here as well. But until next time, do you have any social medias or anything that you'd like to? Any closing remarks that you want to say?
So I'm working on being a writer. So most of my social media does not actually have my first name on it. It's got my middle initials.
Okay.
I primarily am on Twitter and Instagram. M like Michael, W like William, and then Nepp, KNEPP. You can throw it in the show notes or whatever.
Yeah.
I'd love to have people follow me, and maybe I can share some of my writing with everybody. So.
Yeah, I would, dude. When you get that finished up or close to going, I'd love to have back on, and we'll kind of advertise that a little bit, if you will. But until next time, guys, I'm Dom D'Agostino with the Crohn's Corner podcast. You can also call me the Crohn's Father, and you can follow us on YouTube, Twitter. Instagram's coming. You can listen to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. Until then, thanks for listening and peace out.